Welcome to Herald Now. I'm Garth Bray, in for Ryan this morning. It's Tuesday, the 12th of August, and we've got a packed show in store today. Coming up, urgent action is needed to save jobs and businesses in New Zealand. That's the dire warning as gas supplies dwindle. Business New Zealand says it's reached crisis point, and they're with us shortly. A new poll shows Christopher Luxon's popularity has plummeted, but the left bloc is still without enough seats to form a government. Chris Hipkins is with us before 8. The near misses happening on our rail system and the staggering amount of people who admit to illegally crossing railway tracks. Plus, the Department of Conservation on the horrific killing of 3 endangered sea lions near Oamaru. But first, here's news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A belief recognising a Palestinian state's merely symbolic, but it would send a message New Zealand backs its formation. The government's confirmed it will make a decision over the next month, following allies such as Australia moving to lodge recognition with the UN. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes to seize Gaza. International relations expert Stephen Hoadley says recognition would put us in the mainstream.
By recognising in advance the Palestinian state, they are hoping that such a thing will come into existence, that Israel will accept it.
Our Prime Minister says Ukraine needs to be part of the peace process. US President Donald Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska to discuss ending the war later this week. There's been no confirmation of a White House invitation for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Christopher Luxon says Ukraine is a sovereign nation who has been attacked in an unjustified war.
You cannot agree what's going to happen in Ukraine without Ukraine being involved in it. That's a pretty simple thing.
The Resources Minister is looking at gas rationing for struggling industrial users. A survey by energy management company Optima and Business NZ reveals almost half of industrial and commercial gas users have reduced operations, increased prices or cut staff. Shane Jones is seeking advice on whether the government has or should have the power to ration gas supplies to ensure some businesses can keep operating. Major Gas Users Group spokesperson Len Howard says Jones faces a dilemma.
If he does nothing, your risk of deindustrialisation. If you then decide instead to intervene and get accused of being heavy-handed.
Belief that our trans-Tasman friends are keeping tourism strong in Queenstown. Skyline operators who run the luge and gondolas have seen international luge rides increase by 32.6% from 7.46 million in the last year to close to 10 million. Gondola rides have also risen more than 21%. Queenstown Mayor Glyn Lewis says they're crossing the ditch in numbers. Surprise optimism in the construction sector amid a lengthy downturn. A survey by Kennards Hire reveals more than 90% of construction industry leaders feel confident about the next 5 years. However, 94% say they've been impacted by issues like international shipping costs and trade regulations over the past year. New Zealand's deadliest natural disaster could provide answers on how to manage future pandemics. Otago University academics, alongside international researchers from the UK and Germany, are being funded to complete the first digital analysis of the 1918 influenza pandemic. It killed about 9,000 people in 6 weeks.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Interviews to determine the next Silver Ferns netball captain will take place next Friday, with applications due this Thursday. Former Warrior Motu Tony believes the return of hooker Wade Egan is critical in turning the NRL top 4 aspirations around. And All Blacks halfback Noah Hotham is hopeful of recovering from a high ankle sprain suffered against France to play at the back end of the Rugby Championship.
We worry a lot in our country, our wonderful wee country, so I thought, since I'm in the hot seat today, I'd give you a little bit of a hot take about that. We worry about the cost of living. We worry about our jobs. We worry about our kids, what sort of future they might have. And look, maybe that is part of the problem. We worry, but what do we do about it? Action is the antidote to anxiety. That's what I heard this week, talking to someone who advises a whole host of people in business. So what if, as well as worrying, we actually do something, take action? It might be putting your hand up at work. It might be finally taking that bit of furniture you want to get rid of down to the hospice shop, or actually fixing our looming energy crisis before it shuts down the economy. Get up and do something. Well, all of you except Ryan Bridge, your action is beating the bug and getting back in here pronto.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Waking to frost for many with another very chilly day ahead. Fortunately, the showery southerly flow that's been plaguing parts of the country will continue to ease today, with the ridge building nicely over the South Island. But there is still a bit of cloud pushing onto eastern spots, including the lower south, with showers for Dunedin and Te Miru easing this afternoon. Those showers extend up to Kaikoura in the east, but they will ease this afternoon. Also, the south or southwesterly will ease as well. Those conditions feed into the south and east of the North Island here. Could be some afternoon showers further north for the Manawatu-Whanganui region. Cloudy periods with showers again for Hawke's Bay and for Gisborne. Nothing too serious though. Could be a couple of evening showers for Tauranga with southeasterlies. And a day much like yesterday for the upper north. Cold start, maybe a couple of clouds around, and just the chance of showers for Whangarei and maybe for Tianga.
A dire warning from our industrial gas market as our gas supplies decline. They're calling for urgent action to save jobs and businesses. Industry's already been responding to rising gas costs and unreliable supply by cutting back operations, increasing prices, or axing jobs. And without change, that could rapidly escalate over the next couple of years. We're joined now by Tina Sher from Business New Zealand's Energy Council. Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good morning.
Look, we've just been hearing about how we need to take action. That's my take from this morning. But why don't we hear about what we should worry about first? Take us through some of the alarming figures that you've picked up from members, from business.
Yeah, so last Friday we had the pleasure of running a forum for smaller and medium-sized businesses. So quite often you hear a lot of stories from more the major companies, the larger gas users, but gas is actually used in multiple streams. So you have it when you produce your cereals, it's used in chocolate production, think of brewing beer, think of growing tomatoes. It's actually almost everywhere. And last week, so we thought we give smaller, medium-sized businesses a platform to actually engage with government, engage with the minister, to talk a bit about their problems, but also more so about the solutions, particularly going forward over the next 2 to 3 years.
I want to hear about the solutions, but the numbers, what sort of numbers are people hitting you with in terms of how it's affecting their businesses, in terms of costs and so on?
Yeah, so what we've been seeing coming out of the survey that was part of the forum that we had was that you had about 100% of cost increase over the last 5 years for the majority of businesses that been part of the survey. So that just underpins what we've been hearing and seeing in statistics anyway, but we didn't quite understand how widespread it already is among smaller businesses. I think another alerting number was that about 80% of them will come off their contract in the next 2 years, which then in turn means the gas situation is not going to get any better. In fact, there's just simply not enough energy supplied in the market, and gas particularly, meaning obviously the prices will be quite confronting over the next year if we don't do anything about it.
And that's going to give, obviously, inflation and all of our cost of living problems a real hiding unless we can come up with solutions. Is there anything that you think government, businesses, any of those people in this market could be doing better?
Yeah, so, when we surveyed our smaller users, we saw that about 40% really don't have commercially much of an option to do anything over the next 5 years. There is another almost up to 40% who could potentially switch to an alternative because they use low temperatures, for example, or they could apply more energy efficiency, but there's still a couple of barriers in the way, and often it's under the proven of the lack of technology, for example, or costs that are concerning the infrastructure around it. So you think, for example, you connect it to electricity, so the extra cost to connect to infrastructure is barriers for some businesses. And if you think of it, the next 2 years might be quite intense. And if you change your business model or if you introduce more efficient processes or switch to an alternative, it takes time. It's not happening overnight. So the next 2 years are actually quite interesting.
Interesting. I mean, let's talk hard tax. How many businesses do you think we could lose if we don't take action? Is there any indication from your survey there?
It's not really a number as such. There was a few comments of whether what sort of action would businesses take? And obviously, half of them had already done either a reduction in production or had actually reduced staff numbers or had increased the prices. So considering that the trend is going forward, you would see more of that occurring and probably more extreme, because at the beginning, businesses quite often trying to absorb the costs before they go the next level down and let potentially staff go. So it could lead to a major deindustrialization, particularly in our small and medium-sized businesses.
So I guess the government is looking at this right now. We know Simon Watts, Energy Minister, has got a report on his desk about all of this kind of stuff. What would be your message to him if you're sitting across from him, Tina?
I think one of the major problems that we saw over the last years was that the major parties are quite aligned when it comes to most of the energy policy. So I would say 90% they probably have the same idea, more electrification in New Zealand, so shifting more towards renewables. But they have still quite different views when it comes to gas supply. So my major message would probably be to them: get together and figure out a long-term way of dealing with this reducing gas supply. And there will be probably part of the strategy will be, to help increasing supply, but also the other part of the strategy is really to get out and work with these businesses that can commercially convert, and to make sure that they have some support in some shape or form to do so, to ease the stress on the market, the wider gas market.
Understood. Yeah. Okay, Tina Sher, Executive Director of Business New Zealand's Energy Council, thanks very much for your time this morning. Well, look, despite all of that, Westpac has released its latest economic outlook report, and they're still expecting a recovery in our economy. With the global trade war simmering down, low interest rates, strong commodity prices and the investment boost policy, are we slowly turning the tide? Kelly Eckhold, Westpac Chief Economist, joins me now here in the studio. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Now, we're just hearing there about how the gas industry is saying, look, businesses are going to run out of energy, and that's going to be hitting all the verticals, small businesses, big businesses. Is that a part of the calculation that you're making when you're saying we've got a good road ahead of us?
Well, I mean, it's one of the challenges, isn't it, to the absolute level of growth. And I've heard all of those sorts of comments from customers as well, particularly industrial users. It's basically one of those things that constrains the supply side of the economy, which means that we can't grow as strongly as we otherwise would. It's also one of those things that really impacts on inflation for the household sector as well, which is another big theme that we've got in the overview this time.
Yeah, your overview, I think, had a beautiful picture of a child looking out the window saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Does that kind of feel the journey that we're on here? We're not quite at that level.
It's very reminiscent of being kind of like half an hour away in the car with the kids. That's pretty much it. You can sort of see where we're going to end up, but not quite yet.
Well, speaking of ructions in the back seat, it seems like the global picture, the climate seems to have simmered down just a little bit there. We've got a picture about what sort of tariff level New Zealand will be paying with the US. Does that help give some certainty at this point?
I think it does. And where the real big gain is in terms of that we're no longer seeing the big threats of large-scale retaliation around the world. I mean, back in April, there was concern that the whole global economy could really be smashed if Europe and Canada and Mexico, China, if they all fought with the US. That actually doesn't seem to be happening. Basically, they're coming to deals.
So looking more locally here, we've got an OCR decision, Reserve Bank getting together next week. We've got the RBA in Australia looking at it this week. I mean, where do you see that decision? What's on their minds?
Well, I think the RBA is going to cut rates this week. They signalled that quite well. And for this one, we actually think the Reserve Bank will as well, because they pretty much signalled that they were going to do a rate cut in August. Where the action is what happens from here, and our forecast suggests that if this economy picks up as projected, we probably won't see any more rate cuts.
Right. Because we've seen that, I suppose, in the Bank of England decision recently. It was a very marginal call, wasn't it? They voted sort of 5-4 to go there. Contested calls more recently in all of the reserve banks in the countries that we compare ourselves with. So is it getting harder to pick what will happen next?
It's what happens when you get to the end or close to the end of the cycle. There are reasonable debates on both sides of the equation every meeting. So we're absolutely in this age of dissent, where basically there are going to be people wanting different things in every meeting.
We've got the labour market data that came out last week. That was pretty much in line with what we were expecting, but does that give any kind of forward indication about where we are, whether we've hit the bottom, do you think?
Right now, the labour market data is not really pointing to imminent recovery. So, if we look at the volume of jobs growth, it's still negative. We need that to turn around to being positive by the end of this year. So keeping an eye on those sort of indicators, I think, will be quite important for us, the Reserve Bank markets, in terms of determining what happens next.
And does that lead to a bit of a mood shift as well? Or is it on, I don't know, politicians, someone trusted to tell us things are getting better that we believe? When will we actually feel the effects of an of an upturn?
People will feel it when they see more job ads in the paper or on the internet, when they feel more secure about their own employment position. Those are the sorts of things that boost consumer confidence, increase consumer spending, and when businesses see that, that's when the hiring and the investment really gets going.
Right, thanks very much. Kelly Eckhold, Westpac Chief Economist there. Some really insightful thoughts as we try to make our way forward this morning. Next, we're talking foreign affairs. Foreign Minister Winston Peters has said the government will spend the next month weighing up its position on the recognition of a state of Palestine. This came as Australia followed in the footsteps of our European allies and firmly committed to recognising a Palestinian state. Robert Patman, International Relations Professor from the University of Otago, joins us this morning. Robert, what do you make of the news yesterday?
Good morning, Garth. A bit disappointing. It seems to lack moral clarity and, to some degree, I think, strategic urgency. And what do I mean by that? Well, New Zealand was one of the first countries of amongst the liberal democracies to push for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza back on the 27th of October 2023, and we've been asking for one ever since. And other liberal democracies have joined us. Recently, we also had statements warning Israel there must be an immediate ceasefire or further action would follow. And so we had we've sort of walked up the hill, but we haven't actually done anything. We've indicated that we may make a decision within a month. And I think there's a strategic dimension to this also. By taking the step of granting recognition to a Palestinian state, I think New Zealand would help formalise international opposition to what is clearly the plan of the Netanyahu government, which is to take control of Gaza and also annex the West Bank in 2025.
I guess, though, that they'll also be looking at the consequences of what happened when Britain and France talked about doing this, and you saw sort of Hamas pulling back from some of the negotiations that it was undertaking there. So you say there's a strategic element to this. What will our government be thinking it can do at this point to weigh in on either side?
Well, I think that New Zealand will not be indifferent to the growing change that's occurring belatedly, one might argue, given the terrible situation. We are talking about a humanitarian catastrophe, Garth, in Gaza, with more than 62,000 Palestinians killed since the 7th of October, more than 1,700 Israelis. So, it's an international disgrace, quite frankly, that this conflict's been allowed to go on for so long. And it's a very poor reflection on the UN Security Council, where, of course, the United States has used its veto to perpetuate the conflict. But putting that aside, I think New Zealand does have a leadership role to play in unison with other countries. We have good relations with the Palestinians and the Israelis, and I do believe New Zealand's stance behind a two-state solution is very important. It's certainly a position shared with many other countries, the majority of the countries. And I don't think, we should hold back in pushing for this. I mean, let's be quite clear. If Mr. Netanyahu's government goes ahead and succeeds in imposing their control of Gaza, full control, and also taking over the West Bank, there'll be no Palestinian territory to create a Palestinian state out of, and we will be presented with a fait accompli. Yeah. And presumably the New Zealand government, and that's the reason I mentioned the point about being strategic, the New Zealand government needs to take action quite quickly to prevent an outcome it doesn't want.
The action that we would expect, though, any action has to probably involve some element of US support. They're a big player in this thing, and they seem very distracted at the moment by domestic issues. There's been some news overnight there from Washington, D.C., and I think we've actually got a little clip of Donald Trump talking about calling in the National Guard to police Washington, D.C., the capital. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about that.
Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
So, Robert, what do you make of that? It seems like an issue sort of out of the blue.
Well, it is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary move because crime, which is the official rationale for Mr. Trump taking this measure of concentrating more power in the hands of the presidency under his leadership, it's been justified. You know, lawlessness has been cited as the reason, but in fact, crime has actually diminished by 26%. In 2025 compared to 2024, and it went down by 35% in 24. So people are sort of shaking their heads a little bit about what is going on here. It's certainly consistent with Mr. Trump's pledge to clean up American cities as he sees it. He also said in that speech that one of the reasons he's taken this action is he wants to get rid of some of what he calls the slums in Washington, DC, and also homeless people, although he hasn't said removing them from the city. He hasn't actually said where they will go and how the root causes of their predicament will be tackled.
Yeah.
So
and I guess this is again.
But it does. It does seem yet another step towards, if you like, an imperial presidency. Well, concentrating ever greater power in his hands. You make that point, and it's the same thing that he's used for the tariffs as well, sort of claiming an emergency and claiming emergency powers. Robert Patman, International Relations Professor at University of Otago, thank you very much for your comments there. Look, just ahead, the brutal killings of sea lions and the hunt for the culprits, plus frightening near misses on our own railway tracks.
Speaker City Acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all? You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university. My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They've helped us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Time now, 7:23, you're with Herald Now. A report into pedestrian safety on railways has revealed nearly half of New Zealanders admit to illegally walking on or crossing over railway tracks without using a designated crossing. Now look, take a look at this. Close call on the tracks in Auckland, and then some similar footage of an incident that's happened in Wellington. Oh my, look. That's about as close as it gets, really, doesn't it? That video has been released as part of TrackSafe's annual rail safety campaign, aiming to highlight the 60 near misses between pedestrians and trains reported by Kiwi Rail staff last year. Megan Drayton, TrackSafe's Foundation Manager, is here with me in the studio. Good morning, Megan. You made a safe journey here, obviously.
I did, thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
What's the message that you're trying to get across?
I think we're just trying to get across that people need to stay off the tracks. Like, it's pretty simple, right? But, you know, the only place that you're actually legally and safely allowed to cross the tracks is at a level crossing. So anywhere else, the tracks, beside the tracks, tunnels, bridges, it's a no-go zone.
It just seems that basic, and yet here we are, another year, another week, trying to repeat that message to people. So what are we seeing there in those incidents? What sorts of illegal actions people... I mean, obviously, you know, wandering down the middle of the tracks is pretty crazy, but is that a problem? That the main problem?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a lot of people doing that, to be fair. That's kind of rare, but people taking shortcuts is very common. Right. So just, you know, not taking that extra time to walk a little bit further to get to the crossing. So that's kind of, you know, that's the behaviour we want to try and improve, really.
And we're talking about pedestrians here mostly, are we? Or that's the primary focus, is it? People walking?
That's correct, yeah. I mean, vehicles, you know, we have issues with vehicles at level crossings, obviously, but for the purposes of this campaign, it's about pedestrians and keeping them off the tracks. Yeah.
Because obviously most of the level crossings are pretty well sort of signposted, marked. You've got all the safety measures in place there to keep the cars and trucks and stuff off the tracks, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole point of only crossing at a crossing, because there are signs at all crossings, you know, and that's to help us, you know, cross safely, yeah.
Probably if I'm just nipping across to the shops and I'm just going to duck across there, I'm not thinking about the person that's at the controls of that train. What are the messages, what are the things you hear from some of the drivers about these near misses?
Oh, well, I mean, near misses can be as traumatic as an actual hit, you know. They've told me that their heart rate races, they you know, can't breathe, you know, it's just as traumatic having something like that happen as if you actually have a collision. So, you know, it's not a pleasant part of the job for these people.
Yeah, and I guess it's, you know, it's not necessarily death, there's injury as well. There'd be huge numbers of people that survive those things, but their lives are changed forever, right? Yeah.
I mean, to be brutally frank, I mean, not many pedestrians who are hit by a train will survive. Motorists, you know, do and often do, but you know, if you're a pedestrian and you're on the tracks, you know, the outcome's not going to be good.
Right. Okay. Well, let's hope that a few of the people that might think twice were listening today, and maybe if they weren't, some of their mates were, and we'll take that from there. Megan Drayton, TrackSafe Foundation Manager. Thank you very much. Look, they're one of the rarest sea lions in the world, and according to the Department of Conservation, the New Zealand native species is being targeted in a disturbing pattern of behaviour. 3 sea lions were fatally shot near the Waitaki River, close to Oamaru, making that 5 deliberately killed in the past year. Aaron Fleming, who's DOC's South Island Operations Director, joins me now. Aaron, what's going on here?
Oh, look, we're very concerned by what we're seeing. As a nation, we should be celebrating the wildlife that we have, especially our native wildlife, but having 5 sea lions in the last 12 months deliberately targeted by the use of a firearm is really concerning to us.
So walk us through exactly what's happened there, and what DOC's been able to do about that.
So over the course of the weekend, a member of the public made a report to us, and when we followed up, we found 3 sea lions which had wounds which looked like they had been shot. 2 of those sea lions had died, and 1 required to be euthanized. This is horrific. This is really sad. This is not New Zealand. So we're now really keen to find out what has happened here. And we know somebody out there knows what has happened, and we'd really like people to come forward with information by calling 0800 DOC HOT.
So this is a little bit of Crime Watch as well. We're actually hoping to try and gather some more information about those really disturbing pictures, which obviously we treated a little bit to make them just a little bit easier to look at for the viewers this morning. But that's pretty alarming stuff. I mean, that as we said, that brings the number killed to 5. Are we sort of starting to see a bit of a pattern here?
Well, unfortunately, that seems to be the case, and this is why this needs to stop. Enough is enough, really. We need to learn to celebrate our coastlines, celebrate our wildlife, and learn to share these habitats together. Taking a firearm to a sea lion is an offence. So not only is it horrific, it's against the law. So as New Zealanders, we need to do a lot better. And look, we're talking about a real small group of New Zealanders here, right, who are targeting sea lions. Most of New Zealanders are, of course, distraught with what's happened here. But this really does have to stop.
We know that there's, this is an at-risk population. Maybe you can put that a little bit more finely for me. What are the impacts on the species from these kinds of incidents, both, their long-term survival, but just even their behaviours and so on? How does it change them?
This is a special species to New Zealand. There's about 10,000 sea lions that we have in the population. Every single sea lion in that population is important. We get to know these sea lions really well. We know the sea lions that were killed over the weekend. We know where they were born. One was born in Rakiura. One was born down in Enderby Island in the sub-Antarctic. We get to know them really well. Our rangers get to know them really well. Our communities get to know them really well. So each and every single one of those sea lions is special to us, which is why this is just so devastating for the population.
Yeah. So look, just remind us again how, Aaron, we can, if we know something about this, or if we know somebody who might know something about this, we can encourage that person to sort of get in touch and share whatever they might know about this, or maybe, heaven forbid, something that you haven't come across yet.
Yeah, thank you. This is really important because we do need information to work out what has happened here. And people with information can contact 0800.hot or contact the Oamaru police station with that information.
Well, let's hope that they do. And thank you for your time and for your good work. Aaron Fleming, the Dock Southern South Island Operations Director. It's 7:30 right now, so let's go straight to the news with Neva.
Herald NOW News, powered by News Talk ZB.
A belief recognising a Palestinian state's merely symbolic, but it would send a message New Zealand backs its formation. The government's confirmed it will make a decision over the next month, following allies such as Australia moving to lodge recognition with the UN. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes to seize Gaza. International relations expert Stephen Hoadley says recognition would put us in the mainstream.
By recognising in advance the Palestinian state, they are hoping that such a thing will come into existence, that Israel will accept it.
Our Prime Minister says Ukraine needs to be part of the peace process. US President Donald Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska to discuss ending the war later this week. There's been no confirmation of a White House invitation for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Christopher Luxon says Ukraine is a sovereign nation who has been attacked in an unjustified war.
You cannot agree what's going to happen in Ukraine without Ukraine being involved in it. That's a pretty simple thing.
The Resources Minister is looking at gas rationing for struggling industrial users. A survey by energy management company Optima and Business NZ reveals almost half of industrial and commercial gas users have reduced operations, increased prices or cut staff. Shane Jones is seeking advice on whether the government has or should have the power to ration gas supplies to ensure some businesses can keep operating. Major Gas Users Group spokesperson Len Howard says Jones faces a dilemma.
If he does nothing, you risk deindustrialisation. If you then decide instead to intervene and get accused of being heavy-handed.
Belief that our trans-Tasman friends are keeping tourism strong in Queenstown. Skyline operators who run the luge and gondolas have seen international luge rides increase by 32.6% from 7.46 million in the last year to close to 10 million. Gondola rides have also risen more than 21%. Queenstown Mayor Glyn Lewis says they're crossing the ditch in numbers. Surprise optimism in the construction sector amid a lengthy downturn. A survey by Kennard's Hire reveals more than 90% of construction industry leaders feel confident about the next 5 years. However, 94% say they've been impacted by issues like international shipping costs and trade regulations over the past year. New Zealand's deadliest natural disaster could provide answers on how to manage future pandemics. Otago University academics, alongside international researchers from the UK and Germany, are being funded to complete the first digital analysis of the 1918 influenza pandemic. It killed about 9,000 people in 6 weeks.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Interviews to determine the next Silver Ferns netball captain will take place next Friday, with applications due this Thursday. Former Warrior Motu Tony believes the return of hooker Wade Egan is critical in turning the NRL top 4 aspirations around. And All Blacks halfback Noah Hotham is hopeful of recovering from a high ankle sprain suffered against France to play at the back end of the Rugby Championship.
Thanks, Neva. Now, I know Neva's just down the way there. I don't need location devices for that, but apparently Instagram's got a feature that's going to let you track people, and you might not want to be tracked, so we're going to have more on that shortly. We're also going to be talking tech later and using AI to bring back the dead, for goodness sake. Stay tuned for that. Weather now with Heather.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Waking to frost for many with another very chilly day ahead. Fortunately, the showery southerly flow that's been plaguing parts of the country will continue to ease today, with the ridge building nicely over the South Island. But there is still a bit of cloud pushing onto eastern spots, including the lower south, with showers for Dunedin and Te Miru easing this afternoon. Those showers extend up to Kaikoura in the east, but they will ease this afternoon. Also, the south or southwesterly will ease as well. Those conditions feed into the south and east of the North Island here. Could be some afternoon showers further north for the Manawatu-Whanganui region. Cloudy periods with showers again for Hawke's Bay and for Gisborne. Nothing too serious though. Could be a couple of evening showers for Tauranga with southeasterlies. And a day much like yesterday for the upper north. Cold start, maybe a couple of clouds around, and just the chance of showers for Whangarei and maybe for Tianga.
Right, Labour leader Chris Hipkins is here now to talk polls, election strategy and the concerns about our gas supplies. Chris Hipkins, Labour leader, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's start with some congratulations, I suppose. Some good poll numbers last night. What sort of stock do you take from those?
I think New Zealanders can see that this current government, the National Party, Christopher Luxon, they promised to fix the cost of living, and instead it's getting worse. And I think no amount of management speak mumbo jumbo is going to hide from the fact that for New Zealand households who are trying day to day to balance their own budgets, they're finding it harder and harder. Things are getting more and more expensive. National said they were going to fix this problem. They've made it worse.
So it's nothing that you're doing then. It's just the economy stupid, as the phrase always says.
At the beginning of this year, I said Labour was focused on jobs, health, homes, and real action on the cost of living. And I think that's resonating with New Zealanders. I think Kiwis know that if you've got a good, well-paid job, then you're much more likely to be able to weather the current economic storm. If you've got access to good health care, then you're going to be able to participate fully in the community around you. If you've got a place to call home, you've got the security that comes with that. And this government promised re-election on the cost of living, and they haven't delivered it. So I think Kiwis want to see a bit more action and a bit less management speak.
Well, what we're hearing, I guess, from businesses and from the representatives this morning is that it's something that wasn't on your list there, which is energy, the lifeblood of the economy in some senses, the ability to actually get all of those jobs, all of that growth, all of that happening. That's not on your list. What's your position there? What would you do about the gas crisis that we're hearing about?
It absolutely is on my list, and right under the jobs heading, because we're seeing far too many jobs being lost because of high power prices in New Zealand. And doubling down on oil and gas and coal is only going to make that problem worse. We need to embrace renewable energy. It's cheaper, it's more abundant here in New Zealand, and it can result in lower electricity prices. And as a government, we were working with some of those big industrial users of coal and gas to convert to electric. So New Zealand Steel, for example, we supported them to install an electric arc furnace. That secured the manufacturing of steel and the recycling of steel in New Zealand. That's an industry we otherwise could have lost. The current government came in and they cancelled all of those projects that were going to be about electrifying the country so that we don't rely on fossil fuels. That's the way we save those jobs.
But it all takes time, doesn't it? It all takes a lot longer than we're expecting. And, arguably on your watch as well, these businesses were deindustrialising as well, or the economy was deindustrialising. We were starting to lose some of these businesses, surely. What you say that the gas ban was the necessary step to get down the electrification road, but with hindsight, was it maybe a bit too soon?
No, we absolutely must do this. New Zealand hasn't had a significant new gas find in over 20 years. Going out there and looking for something that most in the industry will say probably is an unlikely prospect is just throwing good money after bad, when we could be focused instead on switching to renewable energy, which we have an abundance of. We've got an abundance of geothermal, we've got an abundance of wind, we've got an abundance of the sun, we've got an abundance of hydro. These are the things that can power New Zealand's future. It's better for the planet, it's cheaper, and it's going to be better for the country.
Going to be eventually, so in the meantime we're just going to have to wear some job losses, are we?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we can't pin our hopes on something that's probably not there. And I think we've heard governments for the last 25 years say we just need to find more gas and the problems will all be solved. They've gone out and looked for gas and it's not there. So we've got to focus on the thing that we can do rather than wasting 20 years looking for gas. If we'd focused on building up renewable energy sources during that time, we wouldn't be in the pickle that we're in now.
Speaking of pickles, I suppose, I mean, this is a time where if you're getting a lift in the polls, people start to look at you more seriously as a government. Are you looking at your own bench and saying, these are the people that are going to be right with me in Cabinet, or are you having some second thoughts?
No, absolutely. We've got an amazing Labor team and we've been focused on getting our team into fighting fit shape, both for the general election and also to govern the country after the election, should New Zealanders place their faith in us to govern the country. Yeah. I've been really clear with our team that I want people arriving in office the day after the election with a clear plan of what they want to do, having done their homework very thoroughly, gone out and spoken to all of the stakeholders in different areas to make sure that the promises we make the electorate are promises that we know that we can deliver on. I think New Zealanders have given us very clear feedback, both at the last election and actually since then, when it comes to the actions of this government. They don't want any more big promises that politicians make and then don't deliver on.
So what was your feedback to Willow Jean Prime? Because we had that story recently about how she wasn't sort of paying attention to her emails, wasn't responding, wasn't taking up the opportunity to have meetings and understand NCEA better. So does that have any repercussions for her?
Well, to be fair to Willow Jean Prime, the invitation from Erica Stanford came right at the time she got the education job. I know, having held that portfolio, that there would have been a lot of people messaging her at that time saying, hey, come and meet with us.
And what, the minister isn't the first person you want to listen to and go, actually, I will sit down and have a listen and see what you've got to say? Surely they're going to have the most impact on the policy, and rather than, a list of others, you'd want to hear what they've got to say, surely?
Well, one of the key bits of feedback that Willow Jean got right at the beginning was that the Minister of Education, when it came to the review of the NCEA, wasn't going out there and speaking to them and listening to them. And so Willow Jean made the decision that she was going to do that before meeting with the Minister. Now, she made a mistake in not replying to Erica Stanford and saying, I'm going to come and meet with you, but I'm going to meet with the representatives of the sector so that I can get my head around these issues better first. And she should have done that. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, I think what's important is that we do try and get some bipartisan agreement on issues around our national qualification system. As Minister of Education, I worked really hard to try and do that. I made sure that Nikki Kay, who was then the National Party's education spokesperson, wasn't just meeting with me, but but was meeting with the review group, was meeting with all of the stakeholders in the sector, was meeting with the Ministry of Education, so that we could get something that was not going to chop and change when there's a change of government. And I think we owe it to our kids to try and achieve that.
We do. I guess it starts with sort of having the sit-down meeting with the person at the top, though. Look, in terms of the sit-downs that you guys have had as a Labour caucus, I think Friday you got together. Are we any clearer to hearing some action from you about what your fiscal plan is, whether or not we're going to see Labour proposing a capital gains tax and what that would look like?
I said at the beginning of the year that we're focused on jobs, health, homes and re-election on the cost of living. Those are the things that the government said they were going to focus on and they haven't.
And where does the CGT sit in
New
all of
Zealanders
that?
Want to see action on. But let me also be really clear about this, Garth. There is a difference between economic strategy and the government's fiscal strategy. And this government don't seem to have the differentiation between the two. Our first priority right at the moment is to work out how we can actually grow the economy so that everyone benefits from that economic growth. And then the next order of business will be to then release the government's fiscal plan around what we spend money on and how we pay for that. This government don't differentiate between the two. They seem to think that economic strategy is something that you do after you've dealt with the government's finances. Actually, they're putting, you can't put the cart before the horse. We need a plan to actually get New Zealand's economy right. And I think this government, they're thrashing around looking for ideas and they don't seem to have any.
Right, and your ideas are around infrastructure spending, because we've heard plenty about that from this government, and that presumably is part of the economic picture rather than the fiscal picture.
Absolutely part of the economic picture, and we've said to the current government that we want to work with them on that, because as we look closely at why we don't have the infrastructure we need, I think the chopping and changing of our infrastructure priorities as a country are one of the reasons everything takes so long and everything costs more than it needs to cost. So I don't want to chop and change priorities around infrastructure if we can get some agreement, particularly between Labour and National, and say, let's just get on with it. We know that we need to upgrade our roads, we know that we need to fix our schools and hospitals. We know that we need to deal with the issues with our water supplies. Let's get on with it and do that and stop making that into a political football where everything just grinds to a halt.
You haven't mentioned the Greens in any of this. What about some agreement between Labour and the Greens? Are you happy to have Chloe as a finance minister or even an associate? Maybe throw her a bone today.
Look, Barbara Edmonds will be the Minister of Finance in a Labour-led government. I can be very, very clear about that. In terms of our working relationship with the Greens, of course we work with them in opposition. We have a lot of values in common, but we'll set out much closer to the election where we see we've got common ground with other political parties and where there are some no-go zones for us in terms of a government led by Labour.
Well, we'll see what the voters have to say about that too, I suspect. Chris Hipkins, thank you once again for your time this morning with us. Time now to talk business with our partners 2 Degrees. In the last few hours, Donald Trump has continued to make business headlines, saying he will allow NVIDIA to export advanced chips to China in return for a cut of the profits. He's also signalled that his tariffs won't apply to gold. Now, Dilipa Fonseca from Business Desk joins me this morning. Good morning, Dilipa.
Kia ora, Garth.
Kia ora. Hey, look, tell me, is this another taco morning? Trump always chickens out for Trump. What's going on?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. When you talk about things like these advanced chips, if Trump is willing to kind of back down on them, then I guess the question that people in the market are asking is, what else is he willing to back down on? And as we've seen, over the past few months, quite a few things. And I suppose one of the most sensational elements of this is the Financial Times has kind of reported that actually part of this deal, so we knew that Trump was allowing these chips to go through, but part of that deal that he's already struck over the chips was that he was going to get, that basically the government is getting a 15% cut on the China sales, which some are saying is a worrying precedent. And now, I guess the new development on top of that is that Trump has said that he's got another meeting coming up with Jensen Huang, NVIDIA CEO, where they're going to discuss sending in more advanced chips into China, and so presumably that's going to involve potentially a deal being made around a cut of the profits there. So yeah, you know, there's
because
some
they were
people,
worried, weren't they, that the chips that were going there from Nvidia had some sort of kill switch inside them, and I think the Chinese were getting upset about that and pushing back. Right, the deal. I think the tariff pause that's due to expire roughly today, isn't it, between China and the US, whatever 90-day deal that they'd sort of pushed out. Yeah.
Well, basically, I mean, I think that the kind of bottom line on this is that Trump is really pushing hard for a kind of negotiation with Xi. He doesn't want we've heard all kinds of things from the US government and how they're sort of pausing certain things because they don't want to jeopardize this potential of a meeting and cutting a deal there. And I think that the underlying aspect around all this is that everything with Trump is transactional, or seems to be, right? So it's basically a cut a deal, like literally cut a deal. But international relations has traditionally been based on long-term relationship, long-term ideas. So this idea about Trump and China is potentially up for debate if you can pay the right price for it. And of course there's distrust, as you mentioned. There's kind of distrust on the other side, on the Chinese side, about like, hey, are there kill switches? Are there on these chips as well?
Right, we'll get to gold another time. Thank you very much, Dilipa Fonseca, for your time this morning. Dilipa Fonseca, Senior Correspondent at Business Desk. We talk business every day with our partners, 2 Degrees. Coming up, the tech allowing us to simulate playing sports, and a shocking story about a drug-dealing teen.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivisions with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
It's 7:51 and you're with Herald Now. Now, look, we were talking about getting off the couch and doing stuff. A teenager dealing drugs from the comfort of his parents' home, probably wasn't what we were talking about there. Importing packages addressed to fake people at locations near his house. Over the course of a year, he's managed to import up to $6 million worth of ketamine and MDMA. Melissa Nightingale is Herald's Wellington's senior journalist. She's been across the story and she joins us now. Good morning, Melissa.
Morena.
Morena. So this is a chap who started dealing basically and bringing consignments in what disguised as baby food and heat belts and I guess other stuff that you get from Temu. Tell us the story.
Yes, so he was ordering these packages of mostly ketamine, a bit of MDMA from overseas, and he was having these addressed to locations that were near his home in sort of around the Wilton, Wadestown area of Wellington. And he had chosen areas that had remote letterboxes, basically ones that he or somebody else could come and take the package from without being seen by the occupants of the house. And these packages were mostly declared as things like baby food or, what was the wording? Something like deep heat, muscle pain, back relief belt, that kind of thing. A lot of those kind of packages. A couple were labelled as men's trousers or posters, but Yeah, so he imported 36 packages and 20 of those were intercepted by police and customs.
Wow, so actually a pretty good hit rate there, I imagine, if you're getting stuff through. It just seems staggering that someone would think that they could get away with this. I mean, how long did this all take for police to track down and get on top of?
Well, he said that he sort of started getting into drug use around the time of the COVID lockdowns due to isolation and mental health challenges. And he was able to, in that lockdown period, spend a lot of time in his room doing drugs without anybody actually realizing. But this offending with the importation of drugs spanned a period over 2022 and 2023.
Right, so that's that took a few years to sort of get on top of. I guess, you know, he was in the Wellington District Court. Did we hear anything from the judge there about what sort of sentence we were expecting?
Well, he was sentenced yesterday in the Wellington District Court. So the judge had earlier given a sentencing indication of a 5.5 year starting point. 5 years and 5 months starting point. With, you know, pre-sentence reports ordered to see what might bring that down. His lawyer argued for an 85% discount to that, which the judge did not agree with. However, she still gave him a 65% discount, and that factored in a 25% discount for his guilty plea and multiple other discounts for things such as his youth and his efforts to make amends, his rehabilitation efforts, and his personal background factors such as his mental health challenges.
All right, thanks very much, Melissa Nightingale, Herald senior journalist here in Wellington. Not exactly the sort of entrepreneurship that we want to try and encourage. Look, time to talk tech, thanks to our partners Noel Leeming. Simulated sports like golf, racing and cycling are surging in popularity, driven by tech innovation and convenience, and probably a little bit of that post-lockdown stuff. Paul Spain from Gorilla Technology, he's the CEO there, joins us as he does to talk tech. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Garth.
Tell us more about simulated sports.
Well, it seems like this is really moving forward at quite a pace. In New Zealand, of course, it's winter, so having other options for how you get your exercise and play your sport seems to be working quite well. Last night, I popped down to a place in Three Kings in Auckland called The Range 24/7. They've just been open a couple of weeks, but you can get in there and practice your golf swing and so on virtual courses. That time of night, it was virtually completely full, and it's a 24/7 thing. So they're selling these reasonably low-cost memberships, and people are going in there and practicing their golf at a time that they wouldn't be able to be out on the golf course, or they're turning up with mates and just having a social game. So that's one area seems to be growing quite quickly internationally.
The mind boggles. I mean, they've even had tournaments, haven't they, with sort of virtual players? Or is that where we're heading with this? You could sort of tee off of, I don't know, Greg Norman one day or something like that.
Well, yeah, that's the possibility, right?
Young Tiger, old Tiger.
And you get to play in a range of scenarios that would not happen in the real world. So yeah, it adds another dimension. And in South Korea now we see that that's more popular than normal golf for varying reasons, and apparently there's many times more of these golfing sims than there are Starbucks in South Korea now, something like 5 times. So these things are popping up everywhere, and now New Zealand's catching that bug too.
Yeah, and I think as I mentioned, I know people who got into the Zwift trend or the Peloton or any of those other kind of home trainers and following along with the Tour de France during lockdown, and maybe have sort of stuck with that now. It's always been a sort of a tricky choice. How do you train through a winter if you want to maintain that intensity?
Yeah.
Is that where we're seeing this? What sort of a market are we talking about?
Yeah, well that's growing. I think the overall sports tech market, they're talking about that over the next 5 years globally, surpassing over $100 billion. The virtual cycling, as you say, that's another area that's growing, and there's a range of options. So one of the apps I've been using is called My Whoosh, and costs nothing for the subscription. So as long as you've got the trainer and you've got something that you can connect to, be it a phone or an Apple TV, and then away you go. So I'm getting out on my bike in winter in varying parts of the world, and staying reasonably warm.
I'm just trying to think what other sports we could be, what are we missing out on here? Is there rock climbing? That one's a bit tricky to try and simulate at home. Are there thoughts about what else is coming?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots, because with the virtual reality headsets, you can kind of do anything you like. Les Mills have got their VR app, so you can go in and support New Zealand, but they're taking that globally. And then there's the sim racing. So. I was speaking to a racing driver yesterday, and his comment was, hey, it saves them $1,000 a day to be, driving the sim compared to what it costs to get out on the track. And of course, it's open to anybody. So
no road user charges.
No road user charges.
Yeah. Paul Spain, thank you very much. That's Paul Spain from Gorilla Technology, and we talk tech every week thanks to our partners, Noel Leeming. Coming up, our political editor Thomas Coughlin with his analysis of the latest poll results.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit newsroom.co.nz.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning. Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, you've got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life, I was a chef. Did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost centre reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
You can have what she's having.
It's 8 o'clock and you're watching Herald Now. Good morning and welcome to Herald Now. I'm Garth Bray. Brilliant to be with you this Tuesday morning, the 12th of August. On the show today, Luxon's popularity takes a dive in the latest political poll and New Zealand first overtakes ACT in the party vote. The Herald's political editor, Thomas Coughlin's in shortly with his analysis. The battle to lower the rate of smoking in New Zealand and the controversial decision to remove taxes on heated tobacco products. An expert weighs in shortly. Plus, a new location sharing Instagram feature that's causing alarm and sparking privacy concerns. More on that before 9. And here's Neva with the news.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A belief recognising a Palestinian state's merely symbolic, but it would send a message New Zealand backs its formation. The government's confirmed it will make a decision over the next month, following allies such as Australia moving to lodge recognition with the UN. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes to seize Gaza. International relations expert Stephen Hoadley says recognition would put us in the mainstream.
By recognizing in advance the Palestinian state, they are hoping that such a thing will come into existence, that Israel will accept it.
Our Prime Minister says Ukraine needs to be part of the peace process. US President Donald Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska to discuss ending the war later this week. There's been no confirmation of a White House invitation for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Christopher Luxon says Ukraine is a sovereign nation who has been attacked in an unjustified war.
You cannot agree what's going to happen in Ukraine without Ukraine being involved in it. That's a pretty simple thing.
The Resources Minister is looking at gas rationing for struggling industrial users. A survey by energy management company Optima and Business NZ reveals almost half of industrial and commercial gas users have reduced operations, increased prices or cut staff. Shane Jones is seeking advice on whether the government has or should have the power to ration gas supplies to ensure some businesses can keep operating. Major Gas Users Group spokesperson Len Howard says Jones faces a dilemma.
If he does nothing, you risk deindustrialisation. If you then decide instead to intervene and get accused of being heavy-handed.
Belief that our trans-Tasman friends are keeping tourism strong in Queenstown. Skyline operators who run the luge and gondolas have seen international luge rides increase by 32.6% from 7.46 million in the last year to close to 10 million. Gondola rides have also risen more than 21%. Queenstown Mayor Glyn Lewis says they're crossing the ditch in numbers. Surprise optimism in the construction sector amid a lengthy downturn. A survey by Kennards Hire reveals more than 90% of construction industry leaders feel confident about the next 5 years. However, 94% say they've been impacted by issues like international shipping costs and trade regulations over the past year. New Zealand's deadliest natural disaster could provide answers on how to manage future pandemics. Otago University academics, alongside international researchers from the UK and Germany, are being funded to complete the first digital analysis of the 1918 influenza pandemic. It killed about 9,000 people in 6 weeks.
Herald NOW Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Interviews to determine the next Silver Ferns netball captain will take place next Friday, with applications due this Thursday. Former Warrior Motu Tony believes the return of hooker Wade Egan is critical in turning the NRL top 4 aspirations around. And All Blacks halfback Noah Hotham is hopeful of recovering from a high ankle sprain suffered against France to play at the back end of the Rugby Championship.
Thanks, Neva. Now, we were chatting earlier about the price of gold. It's been bouncing up and down the last couple of days. I think it's up about, $33.50 US at the moment an ounce. The price went through the roof because people thought that the tariffs on Switzerland were going to apply to gold. All of a sudden, the price of gold was going to go up 40% or something like that crazy, just on the basis of the trade deals that Trump and Switzerland are trying to do. And they had to quickly rush around and put a note out from the White House saying, no, these tariffs won't apply on gold imports to the US. But it starts you wondering, are we living in a simulation here where the price of a basic commodity can just bounce around, something that people see as a store of value, just on the whims of what our politicians are talking about? Here's something that isn't a simulation, though, Heather, with the weather.
Herald NOW Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Waking to frost for many with another very chilly day ahead. Fortunately, the showery southerly flow that's been plaguing parts of the country will continue to ease today, with the ridge building nicely over the South Island. But there is still a bit of cloud pushing onto eastern spots, including the lower south, with showers for Dunedin and Te Miru easing this afternoon. Those showers extend up to Kaikoura in the east, but they will ease this afternoon. Also, the south or southwesterly will ease as well. Those conditions feed into the south and east of the North Island here. Could be some afternoon showers further north for the Manawatu Whanganui region. Cloudy periods with showers again for Hawke's Bay and for Gisborne. Nothing too serious though. Could be a couple of evening showers for Tauranga with southeasterlies. And a day much like yesterday for the upper north. Cold start, maybe a couple of clouds around and just the chance of showers for Whangarei and maybe for Tianga.
2 polls in 24 hours have landed, leaving Christopher Luxon facing his worst preferred PM result in 2 years. Joining us now is Thomas Coughlin, political editor of the New Zealand Herald, to talk about the 20% rating there for Christopher Luxon, the 19% for Chris Hipkins, so level pegging with a fifth of the support out there from people. Thomas, what do you make of that?
Good morning, Garth. Yeah, it's pretty significant, I have to say. New Zealanders, for most of the MMP era, in fact the whole of the MMP era since '96, have been governed by relatively popular prime ministers, and that means that your preferred prime minister rating is usually in the high 20s, well into the 30s, sometimes in the 40s. I think even Jacinda Ardern and John Key managed to get into the high 50s and 60s. Christopher Luxon, obviously, in that T1 poll last night, was down in the low 20s, and obviously Chris Hipkins chasing him pretty close there, but also not very popular himself. So it's a really interesting epochal shift in the political environment where we have our government led by a relatively unpopular prime minister, but the leader of the opposition not being astoundingly popular himself. It's certainly really significant because it suggests that there isn't actually a lot of faith from voters that Christopher Luxon is the person they would is the best person for the job, but it also shows that they're not entirely switched on to Chris Hipkins either. And I think you're seeing that reflected in the polls. Obviously, a hung parliament in that Taxpayers Union Curia poll, and a narrow majority in the One News Kantar poll.
And of course, at this time, you also get those minor parties, the support parties and coalition, or the Greens in the case of the Left Bloc, sort of bubbling up a little bit as people start to take a bit of a sniff at them. Is this just kind of mid-term malaise, or is this something a bit more that perhaps that National Caucus will be looking at a bit more carefully?
The answer to that question is probably both. Like you do see in a lot of polling, we haven't seen these 2 polls haven't released their granular data yet, but in a lot of polls that we've seen in the last over the winter have shown that New Zealanders feel pretty dismal about the economy. They feel pretty bad about whether the country's on the right track or the wrong track. In fact, you've seen that basically all year, that as the economy has recovered slowly and in some cases failed to recover, New Zealanders have lost their faith in where the economy is heading. And that usually tracks pretty closely to how New Zealanders feel about the economy, tracks pretty closely to how they feel about re-electing the government.
You mentioned
obviously the main thing.
Sorry, you mentioned this is obviously a bit of a novel turn for MMP, but this is probably the strongest three-way coalition that we've seen in that MMP era, where the power is really seemingly divided, and you've got the PM in the middle getting it in both ears from his coalition partners. Could that be contributing to this sense that, of sort of public disappointment or lack of support for Christopher Luxon, that he's being chipped at by his teammates almost?
Yes, perhaps. There's no way of reading that into the polling. That the numbers don't allow you to sort of to draw a strong conclusion like that. But you can sort of speculate and say, well, yes, this is the first time in the MMP era that you've had two such strong leaders of the minor parties that routinely, in fact, on a basically weekly basis, raise their heads up and challenge the Prime Minister's authority. The MMP era so far has had very strong Prime Ministers and relatively weak minor party leaders, and that is certainly a change. And perhaps New Zealanders are looking at the shape of the government and thinking, we do like MMP, we like the diversity it brings, but we want it to be headed by a strong Prime Minister still.
There's a micro movement in there towards NZ First. What does that tell you, or what are you reading into that?
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. A micro movement towards NZ First, and also to its de facto deputy Shane Jones, who registered 1% of the preferred Prime Minister stakes. I think when you look at how unhappy New Zealanders feel about the economy and the country, and yet the numbers suggest that that people aren't quite willing to embrace the opposition yet. They're saying we're not happy with what we're getting, but we're not quite sure of what the other lot's offering. Perhaps it's the case that a vote for New Zealand First is a vote against the current government, but not for the opposition. And you can say, well, look, we'll give New Zealand First a go, but we want a government with less harder edges, not as many public service cuts, big investment in infrastructure, a wee bit of a soft version of the relatively harder edges of the coalition. I think that's perhaps what's happening there. New Zealand First has traditionally been a protest vote, and New Zealand First at the moment is sort of offering you the chance to re-elect the coalition with a protest vote.
I'm interested, I suppose, in what this does tactically to where the government is moving, because it's all very well to sort of look at that longer strategic picture, but we've seen some sort of pretty surprising moves, things like out of the blocks canning surcharges on payment transactions and stuff that surprised industry, just little things like that. And I wonder if a poll like this might also be a bit of a trigger for another knee-jerk reaction. Do you think that at times like this, governments start to look around at those kind of short-term measures they can throw at the electorate to say, hey, we're here, like us, support us, that kind of thing?
Well, absolutely. I think the government, intellectually, what the government wants to do is to manage the economy well enough that inflation continues to fall or starts to fall again. The economy starts to recover, interest rates go down, people feel good about their mortgages and start spending money again, businesses start hiring again, happy days. That's what the government wants to happen. Yeah. That is slow. That takes a long time. So while that is happening, you would expect to see maybe the government thinking of some desperate moves, fast moves, to make people feel like things are improving faster than they actually are. So that's your pay wave surcharges, making those go away. Perhaps some changes on energy policy, stuff that you can do now that will have a material effect before the election. Because I think it is becoming apparent that the government's broader strategy, which is a fairly stock standard, right-wing economic management strategy to get out of the way, to reduce borrowing costs and to get people spending and confident in the economy, that strategy might not kick in time for people to feel good about the coalition as they go to the polls next year. So maybe there will be some faster moves. And of course, if things continue to get worse, then or not improve, then maybe the snap decision and the knee-jerk reaction that MPs make is about themselves and perhaps their leadership, the leadership of their parties, the leadership of Christopher Luxon in particular, is the thing that is called into question for the election.
Do you think there's a prospect of that?
Not at the moment. I think there's always a transaction cost when you change a leader, and you looked unstable and a wee bit crazy, which is not what I think New Zealanders are asking for right now. But of course, if things fail to recover, if the polling dips further, then you'd expect MPs and the National Caucus to be asking that question.
Thanks, Thomas. Thomas Coughlin, political editor for the New Zealand Herald. Right, our panel's here next to talk about the day's big news stories.
Speaker to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it?
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GGs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
After 20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Kaiwaka's been in the game for 200 seasons. 50 years of facing up to the elements, getting the job done and coming back for more. And that's guaranteed for a lifetime. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
Welcome back to Herald Now. Well, with our panellists in the room today, we've got Dileepa Fonseca, Business Desk Senior Journalist, and Chris Henry from 818 PR. Thanks very much for joining us both, Chris, Dileepa. Wonderful to have you here this morning. I'm just wondering, are you worried about the gas-tastrophe, Chris?
I'm personally not super worried about it. It feels like to me like a great opportunity for us to be putting our focus towards the renewable energies. Maybe easier said than done. But I was interested to see that they were saying that in the last 20 years they've barely found anything. So it does seem like the idea of going after more of it seems a little bit redundant.
Yeah, it kind of feels like politicians on both sides of this are sort of being a little bit dishonest. One side is overplaying the chances of a major gas find offshore, and the other one is, and I mean, I think the other side is perhaps not admitting that actually this whole transition period is actually going to be a lot costly if you want to go full hog on it than perhaps people have admitted, and then also it's going to require perhaps the use of fossil fuels like gas potentially as well, and I think that's sort of what we're seeing playing out here. I mean, I think in terms of the gas finds, you could potentially find the gas, but the issue has always been, can you extract it at the cost? Does the decommissioning cost, is it low enough to justify it, basically?
Right, and the frustrating thing I think I found talking to Chris Hipkins there was, look, could you maybe just reflect on that decision? Yeah. Was it too much too soon? Is there any kind of hubris in there? Was there maybe a better transition plan that you could have worked out? He seemed to be pretty full bore on that tack of, no, we did the right thing. Politics is like that though. I guess you sometimes get punished for sort of pulling back, but at the moment he seems to be doing quite well. Up in the opinion public polls, the Labour's up I think about 3 points overnight in that poll. Did we pay any attention to polls at this point?
Well, how well is well, I guess. I think if you add the two percentages, I think, together of National and Labour, I think it's 67 or 60-ish percentage. I think the last poll is something 60-something percentage. I mean, I think 2017, the combined vote of National Labour was something like over 80% or something. So when you think about it, both these kind of big sort of centre, left, centre, right parties have actually declined in popularity combined. So is that good? I don't know. I suppose it depends how you look at it. But definitely, I guess, if you look at polls as a trend, I suppose Labour is going to be more pleased than National at this point around that.
Yeah, we're all trying to find where they're at. Now, I wanted to ask you, Chris, about Instagram and its location finding app that we've, this location sharing application that we've heard about.
Yeah,
Tell us more about this.
It looks fantastic. I was reading about this morning. So Instagram have come out and they've essentially put a share your live location function. It's pretty similar to what would have been Find Your Friends or originally on Snapchat. But I think the issue is that they have been, some people have been added automatically without their permissions. We checked this morning. We're clear, aren't we?
Yeah.
No one knows where we are. But it is interesting to see where your friends are, and some people are doing it. And I suppose raises a huge amount of privacy risks, especially, I spotted where a few people lived this morning as I was going through. Have you checked yours?
Oh, I haven't looked this morning. I've been a little bit busy just trying to keep ahead of the...
Well, that might be a job for after.
Yeah. It's kind of like sort of find your iPhone headphones or whatever. But this, I guess, if there's nothing wrong with a feature, but if you're automatically putting people on it, that could raise all kinds of problems and I guess all kinds of questions about how this rolls out. And we know these tech companies are not often very good at listening when they get things right.
I think when we were experimenting with this feature just before, and this was actually my first time seeing it, I thought this was just location sharing on posts, which has obviously been there forever.
Yeah.
But this is a totally new feature. When you go into the menu, there is a bit of a drop-down menu where, to be honest, I think if this segment hadn't been part of the whole experience, I probably wouldn't have paid that much attention to the notices that were coming out, and that is the present a set of options, including a location sharing, and I could see how someone by default could just click it without perhaps realizing that they've clicked it. You do still need, I think, some action on your part to make it happen. But this is the story of these tech products right now, right? They want to nudge you towards a certain option.
Well, let's give people a chance to go away and check. We'll be back with Dileepa and Chris after the break. Go away, have a look at your Instagram if you're on it.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies. Then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity and to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
do try it.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to newsroom.co.nz.
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
Welcome back. You're with the panel here on Herald Now. We've got Dileepa Fonseca, Business Desk Senior Journalist, and Chris Henry, 818 PR Founder. Chris, what did you make of the story that we had before about the young guy who was being quite entrepreneurial but quite, illegal with his activities there, bringing in all of those drugs?
I mean, I wouldn't want to say conflicted is the right terminology, but there's a certain element of impressiveness in terms of how he'd all done it. I mean, during COVID lockdowns, I was baking banana bread, not trying to find out how to bring ketamine into the country. He seems very entrepreneurial, and I'm sure goes without saying that it would be much better if he put his skills to better use. But he seems to have been quite successful.
And how's your banana bread? None for us this morning, I notice.
No, my banana bread stayed in COVID. His ketamine seems to have gone a bit further along.
Yeah, and come to the attention of the courts. Look, I mean, obviously, you don't want to encourage that, but there's something to be said for trying to channel that, surely.
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting parts of this case, right? I mean, I think that he got his first, I think they mentioned, break into this whole industry on Discord, which is a social media service for primarily targeted gamers. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a kind of age-old story, the mediums and things like that change, but, it's people and young people making bad decisions that reflect, that have long-term consequences, and where they could have redirected their energies into other things.
But I guess also we've got like a global economy now, and as you say, these applications. So once upon a time, your bad decision might have involved you and a mate making some bad call, I don't know, trying to buy alcohol underage at the bottle shop or something. Now you could be connecting with somebody on the other side of the planet who can ship you stuff. So the risks seem much, much higher.
Yeah, and has our justice system caught up with exactly the severity of these offences? Not saying that this is not a serious offence, but in the sense that, I think that we've still got, as our society, these questions unresolved about how we actually deal with criminal offending of this type, deal with drug offending, what's the best way to tackle it, are we making the problem potentially worse with some penalties rather than trying to rehabilitate the offenders, who's too far gone, those kind of big existential questions, and I think this just shows you that they are continuing.
And I guess also, I mean, I've got some questions about how so much of the stuff just wanders through the border. Obviously, our processes for catching it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember the TV shows back around border security and all that sort of stuff. I felt like those dogs were out and about catching things all the time. But it seems like, as you say, as time has gone on and the technology has become more and more advanced in different places, it's a bit of a whack-a-mole sort of scenario, isn't it? Where these things are popping up, and obviously it hasn't worked out very well for him in the end, and I'm sure he's learned his lesson.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, beagles sniffing out apples is probably the greater downside risk for our economy of some sort of strange moth or something getting through, rather than not to play down the horrible toll that drugs.
Yeah. Well, the question you always have to ask every time that there's one of these busts, even perhaps in this case, is, well, okay, you caught a couple of $1 million. How much did you not catch coming through?
Sounds like there is a lot. I would, never mind your banana bed, you need to be checking your mailbox occasionally more often.
Absolutely, put a lock on it.
Thanks very much, Dilipa Fonseca, Business Desk Senior Journalist, and Chris Henry, 818 PR founder. Right. There was a bit of an uproar when the government decided to lower excise taxes on heated tobacco products, making them cheaper than cigarettes. Now, Labour's health spokesperson, Aisha Verrall, slammed that decision at the time, calling it a total sham, but one public health expert says it's no scandal. And if we're serious about reducing smoking rates, a one-size-fits-all approach to excise taxes might not be the way to go. Ruth Benita, Emeritus Professor from Auckland University, joins me now in the studio. Good morning, Ruth.
Good morning, Garth.
So, heated tobacco products, what are we talking about so people have got a clear idea? This is not vapes, right?
That's not vapes, it's a tobacco product. And so it would seem that the last thing we need is to reduce taxes. But heating a tobacco is different from burning tobacco, and that's the essential difference.
So are we framing this all up wrong by trying to target the products or talking about it and more focusing on what we want to actually
What we're really looking for is a less harmful product. So if you're not burning the tobacco, you're not absorbing all those toxic chemicals and carcinogens in the burnt tobacco. So the smoke is killing people. It's not nicotine. So there's another way to get some nicotine, which is heating the tobacco. And apparently that seems to be, and most likely to be, much less harmful because you're not absorbing the burnt tobacco.
Theoretically, but we don't know for sure, do we? And we don't know what sort of impacts it has on people's attitudes to
that's
smoking.
True. That's true. I agree, Garth. It's a new apparently sort of. We do know from real world examples though that some countries have taken it on in a big way. Japan, for example. 30% of the Japanese population who are smokers are smoking heated products, not burnt ones. That's a good thing. Their cigarette consumption has plummeted. And we also know from independent UK toxicology and the public health and disability independent reviews that it's more likely to be less harmful. So if it's less harmful, I think that's what's attracted a less high tax.
So it's a less high tax, and we know that it's a bit of a monopoly product here. I think it's Philip Morris International, the only ones that bring it in here, right? So there were some immediate concerns that people had about, look, you're just looking after one particular supplier, right? Are there some concerns there?
Of course there are. It's because Philip Morris has a monopoly. They need to be passing on. Well, any company should pass on the saved tax, pass it on completely to the consumer.
And they're not.
The point of it, they're not.
Well, you tell me.
I do know that the local vape shops dropped the price of heated sticks from 17 to 14, but is that the whole lot? I don't know. It should be every single cent going to the consumer. The government is trying to open up options for people who are finding it really hard to quit smoking cigarettes. Cigarettes are the most uniquely harmful product. Anything would be better than that in terms of the exposure that they have to chemicals.
We've still got about, I think, 7% of the population that light up a cigarette or smoke something like that, right? Is that that's just how it is? There's always going to be some people smoking.
No, well, you're quite right. There will always be a very few percent of people, probably older people, who are not readily prepared to switch to different products that they're used to. But that 7% is absolutely crucial. It's hundreds of thousands of people, 200,000 plus. They need a range of options. They need healthier options to be cheaper options. And if they can access heated tobacco products, it's only going to be a very small fraction who will do it. Very small market. And I think that we're on the right track here in New Zealand. We're a world leader. We should be discussing how we can accelerate that last 2% to get down to 5%. Which is smoke-free New Zealand.
It's always the last bit. It's always the last bit that's tricky, isn't it, Ruth?
It's always the last bit that's tricky. Yeah, and
Ruth Bonita, Emeritus Professor from Auckland University.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time here this morning.
Thank you very much.
It's 8:32 and you're on Herald Now. So let's hear from Neva with the weather and the news, sorry.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A belief recognising a Palestinian state's merely symbolic, but it would send a message New Zealand backs its formation. The government's confirmed it will make a decision over the next month, following allies such as Australia moving to lodge recognition with the UN. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes to seize Gaza. International relations expert Stephen Hoadley says recognition would put us in the mainstream.
By recognising in advance the Palestinian state, they are hoping that such a thing will come into existence, that Israel will accept it.
Our Prime Minister says Ukraine needs to be part of the peace process. US President Donald Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska to discuss ending the war later this week. There's been no confirmation of a White House invitation for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Christopher Luxon says Ukraine is a sovereign nation who has been attacked in an unjustified war.
You cannot agree what's going to happen in Ukraine without Ukraine being involved in it. That's a pretty simple thing.
The Resources Minister is looking at gas rationing for struggling industrial users. A survey by energy management company Optima and Business NZ reveals almost half of industrial and commercial gas users have reduced operations, increased prices or cut staff. Shane Jones is seeking advice on whether the government has or should have the power to ration gas supplies to ensure some businesses can keep operating. Major Gas Users Group spokesperson Len Howard says Jones faces a dilemma.
If he does nothing, you risk a deindustrialisation. If you then decide instead to intervene and get accused of being heavy-handed.
Belief that our trans-Tasman friends are keeping tourism strong in Queenstown. Skyline operators who run the luge and gondolas have seen international luge rides increase by 32.6% from 7.46 million in the last year to close to 10 million. Gondola rides have also risen more than 21%. Queenstown Mayor Glyn Lewis says they're crossing the ditch in numbers. Surprise optimism in the construction sector amid a lengthy downturn. A survey by Kennards Hire reveals more than 90% of construction industry leaders feel confident about the next 5 years. However, 94% say they've been impacted by issues like international shipping costs and trade regulations over the past year. New Zealand's deadliest natural disaster could provide answers on how to manage future pandemics. Otago University academics, alongside international researchers from the UK and Germany, are being funded to complete the first digital analysis of the 1918 influenza pandemic. It killed about 9,000 people in 6 weeks.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Interviews to determine the next Silver Ferns netball captain will take place next Friday, with applications due this Thursday. Former Warrior Motu Tony believes the return of hooker Wade Egan is critical in turning the NRL top 4 aspirations around. And All Blacks halfback Noah Hotham is hopeful of recovering from a high ankle sprain suffered against France to play at the back end of the Rugby Championship.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Waking to frost for many with another very chilly day ahead. Fortunately, the showery southerly flow that's been plaguing parts of the country will continue to ease today, with the ridge building nicely over the South Island. But there is still a bit of cloud pushing onto eastern spots, including the lower south with showers for Dunedin and Te Miru, easing this afternoon. Those showers extend up to Kaikoura in the east, but they will ease this afternoon. Also, the south or southwesterly will ease as well. Those conditions feed into the south and east of the North Island here. Could be some afternoon showers further north for the Manawatu-Whanganui region. Cloudy periods with showers again for Hawke's Bay and for Gisborne. Nothing too serious though. Could be a couple of evening showers for Tauranga with southeasterlies. And a day much like yesterday for the upper north. Cold start, maybe a couple of clouds around and just the chance of showers for Whangarei and maybe for Tianga.
Looks like a nice day then. Instagram has announced a new location feature. And it's a move that online safety campaigners say is dangerous by design. The feature allows users to see where their friends and followers are. That's sparking some privacy concerns and reigniting the debate for a law change setting a minimum age of 16 here for using social media. Joining me to talk about that is Brent Carey, who is the CEO of NetSafe right here in the studio. No need to find the location app to locate you here now, Brent. Tell me, before we get into your stance and what you think about this, what exactly are we talking about in real terms?
Yeah, so Instagram has launched a location feature and you have to choose to enable it. And so you're able to tag people, friends, your followers, and let them know where you are. And so for small businesses and the like, letting people know that their business is open on social media, what their social proof is a really great feature. So obviously with it comes some privacy concerns, and so you need to actually choose to enable the feature.
Yeah. I guess though, we've heard and we've seen reports that some people were automatically opted into this when Instagram rolled this out and they were jumping straight online and talking to the head of Instagram at Meta and saying, hey, you haven't got this quite right.
Yeah, well, you need to double consent, so you're not actually defaulted in there. You need to choose to do that. And obviously the way the feature was, people could just scroll and look and by accident hit hide or not hide, so they do need to improve their user experience so it's easier for us to make that choice.
I don't know about you, but I just flick past all of those terms and conditions most of the time without paying too much attention until a show like this comes along and says, hey, you need to be worried about this. But should people be concerned? Is there a reason to be worried about this application, if not for themselves and maybe for more vulnerable people in their lives? It might be kids or older parents.
Yeah, well, for kids, parents need to be actively involved, and by default, kids aren't enabled into location-based sharing, and so parents will be given notifications if their child wants to actually enable this feature. And obviously it's a good time for us to think about our privacy settings, give ourselves a bit of a privacy tune-up, go to your handset, choose if you want to enable location-based services or not, and in-app you can make choices about how much you want to reveal about yourself or not.
So it's time to sit down and have that conversation, work out what you're revealing about yourselves a little bit.
Absolutely, it's a good time to think about how much data we're sharing with these companies, for what purpose. Is it convenience?
Yeah.
Is it about more connection in the offline world? So yeah, it's a good time to do a bit of a tune-up.
Look, it needs to be said that NetSafe gets some funding from Meta, and so does that shape your perspective on any of these things?
No, we're whole of society funded. We get funding from everyone, and Meta does not fund our operations.
No funding at all from them?
We get funding from platforms to do project work to make sure that we're talking about harm minimisation on their platforms.
Right.
And so they actually have a duty of care to tell people what the safety protections are on their platform, and we need to tell people how to enable those.
But you're pretty open as an organisation about the level of funding and those sources you feel and where that's coming from?
We would love it if we were funded more by government and funded by philanthropy, but our demand for our service keeps growing 30% every year, and we need to make sure that we can get these messages out there around safety.
And so that comes with a pretty clear contract around the fact that you'll speak critically about
Absolutely. That's what we're talking about today, is around, hey, making sure that you've got choice, hey, making sure the design features are thinking about the end users, making sure that they have a responsibility to New Zealanders to protect them.
Those platforms, though, they're pretty opposed to the idea that under 16s should be just banned across the board. We've sort of seen moves across the Tasman in that direction. You must have thought, oh, okay, this is going to come up again. Have you had more thinking about that as an organisation,
Look,
whether you think that's a valid move?
Yeah, we're really engaged in the parliamentary inquiry process, and so that's a good time to look at all of the safety measures.
You're engaged, but do you think, I mean, is it a good idea to be bringing in a ban for under 16s?
It's a good idea to have a conversation about whether it's going to work or not, and obviously where other countries that have moved here, like the UK, one of the highest downloaded apps was a VPN to try and circumvent the protection. So I think we've got to think about the intended consequences and the unintended consequences as well. Perhaps start with the behaviour change that we're looking for.
Sounds like a lot to think about. Thanks very much, Brent Carey there, NetSafe CEO. Thanks for joining us this morning. Coming up, how an 8-year renovation has completely transformed a famous New York hotel, plus is YouTube's algorithm indoctrinating our kids? All that and more after this quick break.
Of course we can set up the new smart TV for you. We could also put it on the wall for you too.
Want to keep your family safe online? We've got tips for that.
Yeah, I can show you how to use the AI on your laptop.
Teaching the kids to do laundry? These washing machines auto-dispense the perfect amount of detergent, making it super easy to learn.
Wait, what's a Ninja Creamy?
Got tech questions? We've got answers. With 66 stores nationwide, your tech experts ready to help.
20 seasons on the footy field, it's fair to say I know a thing or two about resilience, just like Kaiwaka wet weather gear. Digging deep when the going gets tough. Kaiwaka, designed to perform, made to outlast.
We've done few subdivisions with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
You're with Herald Now, it's 8:44 and we are talking business again with our partners, 2 Degrees. Business Desk senior journalist Dileepa Fonseca is here with some breaking news this morning. Take it away, Dileepa.
Yes.
What's going on?
So Spark has announced that it's sold 75% of its data centre business to Pacific Equity Partners, and it's going to receive a significant amount of cash back from that. There's a separate company that's kind of going to be set up around it, and yeah, so I mean that is going to be big news. Obviously, Spark, a big high-profile stock, and this kind of data centre end of things is obviously a very high-profile topic as well.
Is there any sense in there about why this deal has happened now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's the analysts are going to be boring off that for a while, but obviously, Spark and needs money for this kind of new sort of strategy. Needs all these technology companies need money for investing in more data centers. I think in the kind of press release around it, they're selling it as sort of a little bit of that, as in terms of we're going to get access to more capital and things like that. Obviously, there've been criticisms around this strategy and things like that in the market as well. To some, it will actually be probably a bit of a surprise because data centers has been a core part of their strategy in terms of we see this is where the growth is. We see this is where investing in this kind of new business is going to be where we're going to get our future growth out. This is where the world is going, with AI and things, relying on these data centers as well, that this is all going to be required. But as we're seeing, some of these technology companies are having to make trade-offs even in the kind of data center area because, the new data centers with AI and things are requiring even more power. They're requiring even huge amounts of investment. Even Microsoft's going to having to cut back some areas of its business in order to redirect that into providing greater capital for building out its data centers. So, yeah, I think probably, a mixture of those things is probably going to be in the decision.
There'd been a bit of talk about this in the last couple of days, hadn't there? So is it a complete surprise that they've rolled this out this morning?
Well, this particular morning, perhaps, but yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk around Spark. Are they going to be, they're looking at selling kind of data center assets. There's been obviously the Australian press gets, when you start looking around for partners,
probably going to be an Aussie that buys it.
Yeah. They seem to be a little bit little more talk. Flowing more freely around there in terms of market-sensitive information, and when things started happening around that, then I suppose rumours started flowing out.
Is it likely to be kind of a something that will enable them to build further from here, or is this what's the road ahead for them?
Yeah, well, this is I think probably going to be a big undecided question. We've seen from certain things that we've seen certain strategies in the past. I mean, we had that time in the past where they went and leased back some of their passive tower assets to generate kind of more cash, and that was sort of somewhat criticised a little bit later on because that also added to the level of debt effectively. So we're going to have to see. I mean, I think everything's going to be probably turning to their sort of earnings and how they kind of explain this result, explain this decision in the coming days, and how they explain how it fits into their strategy as well.
Thank you very much, Telipa Fonseca. We are getting our money's worth from you this morning, and we're talking business every day, thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees. Right, once dubbed the most important hotel in the world, the Waldorf Astoria in New York has reopened after more than 8 years and extensive renovations. So, what's inside? Lorna Riley, host of the Trip Notes podcast, tell us more.
Good morning. Yeah, it has been dubbed the most important hotel in the world, and it's got such a rich history. So it was built in 1931. You can probably picture it, a big Art Deco building right downtown Manhattan, and it has been closed for 8 years. The history about it is incredible. I mean, they've had so many famous guests who have stayed there. Frank Sinatra had a suite, Marilyn Monroe stayed there, virtually every US president, even the Dalai Lama.
I've never been there, sadly.
No. It did inspire one of the hecklers in the Muppets, Waldorf and Statler.
Right.
And my favourite story about it is Fidel Castro once strode in there with a flock of live chickens and demanded that they be killed and cooked to his satisfaction immediately. He got turned away. Funnily enough. Now, they did have 1,400 rooms. They've been closed for 8 years. They've now reopened. They've only got 375 rooms now, but some condos as well. And the rooms are big, about the biggest you'll find in Manhattan. So the smallest is about 53 square metres. They've retained some of the beautiful interior, the murals. You've got the 1893 Chicago World's Fair Waldorf clock. You've got Cole Porter's Steinway piano. And they are going to be opening a massive ballroom and also a 20,000 square metre Guerlain spa. So this is going to be incredible. That's all the good stuff. The bad stuff is the price.
Okay. Everything comes with the price.
So how much for an entry-level room per night, New Zealand dollars, do you reckon?
I'm thinking it's going to be more than the old bookings.com $300 kind of thing, or whatever it is.
Yeah, $2,800 for the entry-level room. And if you want a one-bedroom suite with a view of Park Ave, that's going to start off at about $7,500. But, you know,
a night?
A night. But,
wow,
you know, what price this history?
You wouldn't want to be staying there long unless you...
No, one night only, I think, and even then you're probably selling a kidney.
Can you do just one night, or do they make
Yeah, no, you can do one night, you can. I'm sure there's a lot of rubberneckers there.
Absolutely. Well, look, okay, so Amsterdam, let's look overseas. They're combating over-tourism. We heard a bit about that in Venice with the Bezos wedding and so on as well recently.
Barcelona, a lot of European cities have been trying to combat over-tourism, and they're starting with capping their river cruise docks, which is interesting to me because I will be docking there on a river cruise in November, but they're going to cut their quota by 800 ships a year, so down to 1,150. So quite a big, it's almost halving the number of river cruise operators that can dock there. And this is, you might imagine, has caused a bit of pushback. So people are saying, well, maybe we can have approved time slots, we can handle it that way. They're also tackling ocean ship cruising. They share the same terminal in the city of Amsterdam. They're going to phase out ocean cruising entirely, docking there by 2035, but they'll be down to 100 ships next year. And their other bid to combat over-tourism is they want to limit the number of stag do's that are held in Amsterdam.
And hens nights, I hope, as well. Come on,
They
be
just
fair.
mentioned the bachelors, funnily enough,
really now?
but I don't know how they're going to combat that particularly sticky problem.
Well, you be sure to check it out while you're there for us, please. Lorna Riley, host of the Trip Notes podcast. We'll catch you after you've come back from Amsterdam. Up next, the news stories to watch for later today, and the front page takes a closer look at YouTube.
Are you considering a DIY kitchen but just not sure if you can do it? Well, it's not as hard as you think. With You Do It DIY Kitchens, you're in safe hands. And the customer support team really know their stuff. After all, they design and manufacture everything here in New Zealand. You do it and you save money. So choose You Do It, the affordable DIY Kiwi kitchen with a great reputation. Visit newsroom.co.nz.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning.
Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
I'm Hayden Scott and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life I was a chef, did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost centre reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
You can have what she's having.
Time to find out what's on the front page podcast this morning. Chelsea Daniels, you're looking at YouTube today. I mean, everybody's always looking at YouTube.
Everyone's always looking at YouTube. It's a behemoth, hey? So in terms of, did you know that it's more than 20 years old?
I'm more than 20 years old, so I probably did know that. But yes, it's been a long time since Charlie bit my finger.
Yeah, I mean, well, it started with a 19-second video of one of its founders at the San Diego Zoo. Presumably, presumably they were just kind of testing it out. But now hundreds of hours of content are uploaded onto the platform every single minute.
Second, probably even.
Probably.
Yeah.
Hey, it's absolutely huge. So I spoke to Victoria University of Wellington Associate Professor Dr. Peter Thompson about the algorithm and how can we actually protect, say, our kids from going down rabbit holes where they're not supposed to be going. So 1 minute you're watching cartoons or sensory content or something, and the next they might be going down, Americans shooting guns or something. That's the first thing that I thought of. But in terms of that, he reckons that there is more that we can do. We're not doing enough. So you've got the likes of the UK, for example, introducing the age verification for social media and online sites and everything in terms of that's pornography and explicit content. You've got Australia looking at social media ban, which YouTube has been swept up into as well, which was a bit of a controversy over there. YouTube said
they were almost out of the money, weren't they? They were like, we're separate. Everybody else is going to be included. This is not YouTube. So what happened there?
Almost. Yeah. The chief commissioner in terms of the online commissioner, I can't remember the exact name of her, but she said no, YouTube probably should be included, and that's because it's got the things like the reels now. You can comment, you can talk to each other through it, and so she said, chuck it in. But that means that they'll be swept up into this as well. Australia doesn't know how they're going to police it yet. They're going through trials of age verification as we speak. They haven't revealed exactly how they do it. But Peter told me, look, it could be as simple as labelling something. So we go to the movies, and if there's an R18, you're not going to let your 16-year-old go see it, or are they going to ask, you're not going to see...
You'll be making an informed choice, Chelsea, is what you'll be doing. No, you'll be respecting the law, I'm sure.
I mean, you're not going to see it like an 8-year-old, an R18, right? No. So that could be a good starting point with YouTube, getting creators to label their content. Yeah. But the thing with that is, if a terrorist wants to upload extremist content, they're not going to have the foresight of being like, wait, this is R18, So there are caveats and things to be explored.
I guess, that extreme, the terror example, we think about that particularly in New Zealand because of the shocking impact of that incident in Christchurch. But just the more kind of day-to-day stuff, the sort of the oversharing of things, or the way that algorithm pushes you towards perhaps more extreme content and so on. Listening to NetSafe earlier, they were talking about how, well, look, the first thing that usually happens is you just get a VPN, you get a measure that gets around it. People find their way around it because they want to look at this stuff, or their mates are looking at it, so they want to join in. Yeah. So, did your expert land on any conclusions there about what we can do there?
Well, the thing about YouTube and protecting kids, for example, they've got the YouTube Kids feature, which is great. It has parental controls and it makes sure that it kind of hides a lot of content for kids. But what YouTube says is kids is from 0 to 13. Now, what is sensitive content to a 3-year-old may not be to a teenager, for example. So we spoke about the idea of, should there be a YouTube Teens?
Or tweens.
Or tweens.
You can carve it up so many different ways, can't you?
Exactly.
Chelsea Daniels, thank you so much for your time this morning. And the Front Page podcast is available now on iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, probably even on YouTube if we're honest. Anyway, let's take a look at the news developing today. With me now in the studio is Katie Oliver, Herald NOW reporter. Now, look, there's been a serious crash on the Southern Motorway this morning. Can you tell us what's happening there, Katie?
Yeah, good morning, Garth. Yeah, so there has been a really serious crash. What we know so far is that emergency services are responding to a single vehicle crash. Now, this is on the Te Irirangi on-ramp on the Southern Motorway. Now, we know at this stage that there has been one person critically injured, but there will be updates on this crash as the day goes on.
Right, okay, that's good that you're across that. You've also got an update for us on the Tasman cleanup. What's happening there?
Yes, so this comes after months, well, weeks and weeks of cleanup efforts from the Tasman District Council. Crews there have been working to clear a road which has left Tasman residents isolated. So now they had to move tons of rockfall, they had to scale cliffs, they had to do all sorts to get this road clear so that isolated residents could actually get back to doing day-to-day life. Now, this has been weeks of work and the council announced this morning that they're very happy with how it's gone.
And you hope that it stays clear, but hey, we know that there's, the picture there, the news that we're getting there suggests that it's only a matter of time before something like that happens again, right?
This is true.
And now, look, the Youth Minister has an announcement that you're across as well. What's coming today?
Yeah, so this just came in this morning. James Meagher has announced a $3 million youth fund. Now, this is to go towards reducing the number of people on the job seeker support benefit, increasing student attendance, and also aims to provide support for parents, young parents and their children in the first 2,000 days. Now, the key thing about this, Garth, is that it is a matched fund. So they will be providing matched funding for businesses, iwi, like various charities to
Chip in, you do your bit too, we'll help you out.
And we'll match it. Right, exactly. So it's quite exciting. I think there's going to be more on that as the day goes on. But yeah, that's to coincide with the International Youth Day. So happy International Youth Day, Gar.
It's been a while since anyone wished me well for being that young. But that's great that they're moving and looking at I know the 1,000 days, the first sort of 3 years has been a thing. But to push it right through to that first 2,000 days, that's right up through into school and so on. Anyway, thanks very much, Katie Oliver, Herald NOW reporter. We're just coming up to 9 o'clock and it's time for news with Neva.
Herald NOW News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A belief recognising a Palestinian state's merely symbolic, but it would send a message New Zealand backs its formation. The government's confirmed it will make a decision over the next month, following allies such as Australia moving to lodge recognition with the UN. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes to seize Gaza. International relations expert Stephen Hoadley says recognition would put us in the mainstream.
By recognising in advance the Palestinian state, they are hoping that such a thing will come into existence, that Israel will accept it.
Our Prime Minister says Ukraine needs to be part of the peace process. US President Donald Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska to discuss ending the war later this week. There's been no confirmation of a White House invitation for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Christopher Luxon says Ukraine is a sovereign nation who has been attacked in an unjustified war.
You cannot agree what's going to happen in Ukraine without Ukraine being involved in it. That's a pretty simple thing.
The Resources Minister is looking at gas rationing for struggling industrial users. A survey by energy management company Optima and Business NZ reveals almost half of industrial and commercial gas users have reduced operations, increased prices or cut staff. Shane Jones is seeking advice on whether the government has or should have the power to ration gas supplies to ensure some businesses can keep operating. Major Gas Users Group spokesperson Len Howard says Jones faces a dilemma.
If he does nothing, you risk deindustrialisation. If you then decide instead to intervene and get accused of being heavy-handed.
Belief that our Trans-Tasman friends are keeping tourism strong in Queenstown. Skyline operators who run the luge and gondolas have seen international luge rides increase by 32.6% from 7.46 million in the last year to close to 10 million. Gondola rides have also risen more than 21%. Queenstown Mayor Glyn Lewis says they're crossing the ditch in numbers. Surprise optimism in the construction sector amid a lengthy downturn. A survey by Kennards Hire reveals more than 90% of construction industry leaders feel confident about the next 5 years. However, 94% say they've been impacted by issues like international shipping costs and trade regulations over the past year. New Zealand's deadliest natural disaster could provide answers on how to manage future pandemics. Otago University academics, alongside international researchers from the UK and Germany, are being funded to complete the first digital analysis of the 1918 influenza pandemic. It killed about 9,000 people in 6 weeks.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Interviews to determine the next Silver Ferns netball captain will take place next Friday, with applications due this Thursday. Former Warrior Motu Tony believes the return of hooker Wade Egan is critical in turning the NRL top 4 aspirations around. And All Blacks halfback Noah Hotham is hopeful of recovering from a high ankle sprain suffered against France to play at the back end of the Rugby Championship.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Good morning. Waking to frost for many with another very chilly day ahead. Fortunately, the showery southerly flow that's been plaguing parts of the country will continue to ease today, with the ridge building nicely over the South Island. But there is still a bit of cloud pushing onto eastern spots, including the lower south, with showers for Dunedin and Te Meru easing this afternoon. Those showers extend up to Kaikoura in the east, but they will ease this afternoon. Also, the south or southwesterly will ease as well. Those conditions feed into the south and east of the North Island here. Could be some afternoon showers further north for the Manawatu-Whanganui region. Cloudy periods with showers again for Hawke's Bay and for Gisborne. Nothing too serious though. Could be a couple of evening showers for Tauranga with southeasterlies. And a day much like yesterday for the upper north. Cold start, maybe a couple of clouds around and just the chance of showers for Whangarei and maybe for Tianga.
And that's it for today. We'll be back from 7 tomorrow morning for more news. Go to nzherald.co.nz. A quick thank you to our partners Forsyth Bar, You Do It, Barkers, Max, 2 Degrees, GJ Gardner, Dilmar and Noel Leeming. From the team at Herald Now, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.